The jungles of Vietnam were no place for boys like Sean Delany to become men, but Uncle Sam thought differently. Sean was our medic, drafted fresh out of high school where he had led his football team to the state championships. He was only 17. Growing up on a wheat farm in Kansas, he was raised with hard work, strict discipline, and biblical teachings. We all liked Sean. I don't think he ever met a stranger. He'd crawl into a foxhole at dusk and read the little pocket Bible he carried with him by the fading light. Sean planned to attend seminary once he got out of there. I didn't have the heart to tell him it was if he got out of there. After 4 tours as a sergeant, I've seen too many boys like Sean return home to their mothers in coffins. After a routine reconnaissance mission one day, we returned to base camp. It was Sean's first mission. We were fortunate not to run into Charlie. Even when you don't encounter the enemy, you're relieved to be out of the jungle. The canopy made it stifling hot, and the humidity didn't help. The rough terrain was uncomfortable for sleeping, not that nerves or insects allowed much rest anyway. The shadows and creatures in the jungle play tricks on your mind, making you think you see and hear things. Charlie knows the jungle all too well. If the boogeyman had a name, it would be Charlie. They jump out of the shadows, pop out of the ground, hide in the trees, and mimic animals, so we never knew where they were or when they were coming. The boys were excited to be back at base camp and went straight to the kitchen for some real food: bacon and eggs, coffee, orange juice. I could hear their lifted spirits from Colonel Dreyfus's tent. I had followed my LT, a very green young man fresh out of West Point, over there when he was summoned. I had the unpleasant task of breaking the news to the guys that at 1200 hours, we would be taking a boat up the Mekong River into an area known for heavy fighting along the Cambodian border. The news dampened their spirits. They finished their breakfast in silence and then went to replenish their gear. You could feel the tension as we headed upriver. Everyone was quiet, alert, their heads constantly on a swivel. The bush was thick along both sides of the river. I could tell Sean was particularly nervous, trying to put on a brave front. It was only his second mission, and he hadn't seen any real action yet. I tried to prepare him as best I could for what was to come. Stepping off that boat was surreal, like walking into a haunted house. Everything looked disturbing and felt wrong. You knew something was going to jump out at you, but you didn't know where or when. The boat operator must have felt it too. As soon as the last man was off, he sped away, leaving us with no choice but to push forward. I glanced at Sean, who gulped hard as he watched the boat leave. It was as bad as I had said before, maybe worse since everyone was expecting a fight at any moment. We couldn't tell if the movement in the shadows was just branches blowing in the breeze or Charlie moving into position. We couldn't discern if the animal noises were actual animals or Charlie communicating with each other. At one point, a private named Jackson Bishop lost his cool and opened fire at nothing. I managed to calm him down, but Corporal Hayes was furious, raging about how Jackson had given away our position. He was right. The kid had definitely compromised us. We continued for another quarter mile until the jungle opened up to a small village of bamboo huts with thatched roofs. The villagers sat silently, motionless, as we began to search the area. Then Charlie ambushed us, popping out of rice barrels, jumping out of haystacks, and firing down on us from the trees. The chaos was immediate. Villagers ran for cover, screaming in their native tongue. Bullets sent dirt flying, and donkeys brayed and chickens squawked in the pandemonium. Private First Class Nick Spagnoli was shot in the thigh. Sean pulled him to cover and stopped the bleeding. The LT ordered us to fall back into the jungle. Sean hoisted Nick onto his shoulders and carried him as we ran, pursued by the North Vietnamese. When the LT saw the corporal take a bullet to the shoulder, he ordered us to find cover and return fire. He then called for Danny Thompson, our comms officer, to order the evac. Sean laid Nick in a ravine, and returned for Hayes. He bandaged Hayes up, put him on his shoulders, and ran him to the river. When he came back, the LT was bleeding heavily from the abdomen. Sean bandaged him up and quickly moved him to the river. When Sean returned, Private Don Howard was dead, shot in the head. I had been shot in the arm. Sean bandaged me up, and I ordered him to get Nick out, who was still fighting but couldn't walk. While Sean was gone, Thompson and Bishop were both shot in the chest. It was just me and our sniper, Dale Lewis, holding Charlie back. Sean returned with news that the boat had arrived. I ordered the retreat. Sean threw Thompson over his shoulders, and Dale grabbed Bishop. We moved as fast as we could, firing behind us. I was shot in the back. Sean turned, grabbed me by the shirt, and pulled me along with Thompson still on his shoulders. We were close to the river when I saw Dale go down, dropping Bishop. Dale had been shot in the calf. He rolled over screaming, spraying bullets everywhere to keep Charlie off him. Sean dragged me to the boat, laid Thompson in, got me in, and ran back into the jungle. He reemerged, dragging both Bishop and Dale still firing wildly. Sean got both men into the boat. As Sean went to step into the boat, a bullet struck him in the back, causing him to fall backward. The boat's gun opened fire as Charlie swarmed the bank. I saw Hayes lean over the boat, reaching for Sean, but the boat sped away just as Sean hit the ground. I propped myself up and looked back. Sean was crawling, surrounded by Charlie. They beat him with their rifles until a commanding officer shot him in the head with a pistol. That was the first time I shed a tear for one of the boys who died under my command. You go into war expecting them to die, but it seemed as if God was on that young man's side as he dodged bullets to drag us all to safety. Perhaps God was on our side, sending him to save us. I've seen many boys sent home to their mothers in coffins during my time in Vietnam, but never one as heroic as Sean Delany. Never have I seen one act so valiantly. Never have I seen one die so brutally. Never have I seen one not shipped home until him. There was nothing Sean could have done for Don, but those of us he could save, he did without hesitation. Once we were all healed and discharged, we paid a visit to the Delany farm and shared the story of his bravery with his parents. His parents and sister wept, saying, "This time we are crying tears of pride and joy for the man our son grew up to be. We hope you boys make the most of your lives in his memory." In his honor, we started a charity for vets in need.